Well, all my Saquon Barkley teams are in a little bit of pain right now. We'll talk about what we're doing with him on Monday night. But we have so many injury updates. I don't want to waste your time. Let's get right in here. And we'll actually wait for those. We'll be looking at these first. David Njoku is going to be questionable after sustaining burn injuries to his face and arm during a household incident. Now, obviously, super sad news, something that we don't want to have to be dealing with, something that I'm sure David Njoku definitely does not want to have to be dealing with. Ultimately, from a fantasy football impact, you're not starting David Njoku. I mean, if he is going to be questionable whatsoever, based off the play that we've had so far this season, probably an easy spot to say, okay, well, yeah, probably makes sense for us to pivot off and avoid. Now, going over to our next guy, looking at Jalen Waddle, he has cleared concussion protocol, and he's going to be someone that we are wanting to start for damn sure. Wide receiver one this week in a phenomenal matchup. And then Justice Hill is expected to play this week. Melvin Gordon expected to be called up to the practice squad. We'll see later on in this live stream that Gus Edwards as well is good to go. So you have a ton of different options in Baltimore at the running back position. And in reality, you probably don't want to be starting any of these guys, right? I mean, ultimately, none of them are elite level talents. I mean, if they're going to split the pie a bunch of different ways and it's a horrendous matchup going up against Cleveland, don't start any running backs in Baltimore. But let me go ahead and pull this back around. And as I do this, of course, please, if you have not done so already, go down there, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. We're going to be live streaming every single day until 2024. Have not missed a day since April. And if you want to check out any of these pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy for the games tomorrow, I'll go through an entire video after this showing you my favorite pick'ems. One of my favorites is going to be Tank Dell for more than 3.5 receptions, but you can find that link in the comment section. You can find it in the live chat in the description. Promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500 on Underdog Fantasy. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be getting a Patrick Mahomes special pick'em for the game tomorrow night, more than less than half a total yard against the New York Jets. Only going to get all that with promo code FLOCK, so make sure you take advantage. But our next update will be Zay Jones is going to be missing week 4. If you're looking at Zay Jones, we weren't really excited to start him regardless, but this does have a pretty big impact on Christian Kirk. This means that Kirk is yet again going to be viable this week. We know that when Zay Jones is healthy, Kirk has been only regulated to 3 wide receiver sets, whereas if Zay Jones is out, then Kirk has that full-time role where he has a pretty large receiving skill set. Now, going over to Cleveland again, Deshaun Watson's quote-unquote hopeful to play. He's dealing with a right shoulder contusion. I'm not a doctor. Doesn't sound good. Probably should be avoiding it. And we will be lowering down Amari Cooper in our rankings slightly. Now, of course, we still probably want to play Amari Cooper, just lower expectations. Now, Bryce Young will be playing this week. Fundamentally, doesn't have a massive impact on what you're looking at with the receivers in Carolina. Obviously, these guys have been phenomenal. But with that being said, the passing volume is probably going to come down. I mean, the Carolina Panthers, I believe, have had about 50 passing attempts per game over the past 2 weeks. So, like, Adam Thielen's been great. He's not like a must-start player, though. Now, Miles Sanders will most likely play this Sunday. Now, of course, we don't know right now. I will be live streaming tomorrow morning as well to make sure that I continue to provide y'all with updates. He didn't practice yesterday. So, I mean, I think we are a little concerned here. Now, Logan Thomas is going to be playing. Ultimately, do not play Logan Thomas. Do not play any Washington Commanders outside of possibly Brian Robinson, even though it is a tough matchup. Anthony Richardson is going to start a cleared concussion protocol. And with Anthony Richardson, he is a top 5 to 10 quarterback immediately in fantasy based off his rushing upside. And he's been damn good as well. Ultimately, not a super big impact on either Michael Pittman Jr. or Zach Moss. Both guys are going to be must-start players regardless. Like we said, you probably want Anthony Richardson starting for the sake of the Indianapolis Colts. But this is one of those rushing quarterbacks that will be taking a considerable amount of the points for himself on the ground. Now, going over to Jimmy G, he remains in concussion protocol, still technically questionable for the game. Now, I do not know what's going to happen, but if Jimmy Garoppolo does not play, do we all of a sudden panic and bench Devontae Adams? No, we do not do that. Do we all of a sudden panic and bench Josh Jacobs? No, we do not do that. It's not like Jimmy Garoppolo is Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, transitioning over to the backup quarterback that did have some success in the preseason will definitely not be good. You'll move Adams down your rankings, but you're still starting Adams no matter what. But if Jimmy G were to miss, then at that point, Jacoby Myers really is not too appealing, even though he's crushed the 2 weeks that he's played. Now, Treylon Burks has been ruled out. This offense is so damn bad that we're really not excited about anybody in it. However, no Treylon Burks, you are going to give the bump up to DeAndre Hopkins. Sounds like Hopkins is no longer dealing with this ankle issue whatsoever. So we did not rank DeAndre Hopkins inside our top 30, 35 wide receivers this week, just because, I mean, we were worried about this Titans team coming into the season. We've seen the confirmation of how bad this offensive line is, how Ryan Tannehill is playing. You're not really excited about anybody in Tennessee, but no Treylon Burks. Delvin gives a small bump to DeAndre Hopkins. This is a very interesting thing to point out. So Joe Burrow is not on the injury report. And with Joe Burrow, obviously, this is one of the biggest impacts that you're going to have in fantasy so far this season, is that you've had disappointing starts to the year for T. Higgins, for Joe Mixon, for Jamar Chase, for Joe Burrow. And it all hinges on the Joe Burrow calf injury. Now, what we were saying previous to this is, just because Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals went out there and beat the Los Angeles Rams this past week, it's not like the fairy godmother came down and went bada boom, bada bang, Joe Burrow, your calf is now healed. I think we still have to treat Joe Burrow as if he has a calf injury, as if we are going to see below average quarterback play in Cincinnati until proven otherwise. So I'm still operating under the assumption that we have to have a little bit of lowered expectations for these guys in Cincinnati. But it is very encouraging to see that Burrow is not on the injury report. At least it's a sign that he's trending in the right direction. Now, Tyler Higbee signs an extension. Very weird to see this, right? But he's also questionable to be playing week 4. If Higbee misses, I mean, not too much of an impact. Like, you're not starting a backup tight end in Los Angeles. Tyler Higbee missing doesn't really impact what you have with Tutu Atwell. I mean, they pretty much, obviously they play two completely different positions, but they are used in two completely different ways. Maybe you make an argument Puka Nacua gets a small bump up. And you know that we actually had Puka and we had Amari Cooper ranked back-to-back in our rankings this week. I think now you definitely have to go with Puka over Amari, primarily given the shoulder injury to Deshaun Watson. Now, Cooper Kupp will practice next week, which is very encouraging to see. I wish I would have been able to pull it up for this live stream, but Sean McVay was coming out and he was saying, well, you know what? Cooper Kupp may be back next week, but that doesn't mean he's going to be at 100% next week. I mean, he kind of was a wet blanket with this situation overall. I don't care if Cooper Kupp plays next week. I will not be hesitant. Y'all know guys that typically are coming back from these soft tissue injuries, whether that was Christian Watson, Jerry Jeudy, Terry McLaurin. We say be very hesitant in playing them until we actually see them on the field producing. In the case of Cooper Kupp, that's not going to be the case. If Cooper Kupp is good to go, I'm going to go through and I am going to be jamming Cooper Kupp into my lineup week 5 and moving Puka down rankings considerably. Now, Derek Carr, questionable. He got in a limited practice on Friday. Pretty big surprise. I mean, for me, I've been treating it as if Jameis Winston was going to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. I was really wanting to see Jameis for a multitude of different reasons. One, I just think that Jameis Winston, I mean, whether he's good or bad, I mean, that's not an argument, but he is one of the more entertaining quarterbacks that the NFL has. So I was hoping that we got to see Jameis, especially because they are going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But now at this point, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, tomato. You start Olave, Michael Thomas, borderline flex play. Alvin Kamara, must-start guy, regardless of the quarterback. Now, this is something that I was very excited to see. Jamison Williams, his suspension is now reduced, and Jamison Williams will be back in week 5. Full transparency, I have a ton of Jamison Williams in underdog best ball drafts, specifically high-stakes underdog best ball drafts where we are getting him at a significant discount the 2 to 3 weeks leading into the season. So this is going to help my best ball teams, and that's where I have the majority of my money in fantasy football. Now, with that being said, I'm going to be very realistic here. While Jamison Williams coming back will help my best ball teams, and then I think we'll have a couple random weeks from Jamison Williams this season where he has 2 big touchdowns, where he does randomly spike and give you 20 to 25 points. Fundamentally, I do not think that Jameson Williams makes a big impact in a regular shallow redraft format. What I expect the situation to be is I expect that Jameson Williams will be the vertical element to this Detroit Lions offense. I expect that he is going to be a headache for defensive coordinators, where he is going to make them keep two safeties back at all times. And I expect that this is going to be a situation where David Montgomery gets to see lighter boxes, where Amon-Ra St. Brown gets to see a less defensive attention and maybe a little more space underneath. Same thing with Sam Laporta. And while Jameson Williams is not going to be commanding a ton of volume in his own right. So personally, I am excited for best ball. But from a redraft perspective, I don't expect Williams to come in, command a ton of volume, and negatively impact St. Brown, Sam Laporta, or David Montgomery. I think it will actually just be so good for this Detroit Lions offense overall that maybe Jameson takes some of the production, but I think it's just going to be new production that's available in Detroit, probably coming from, Reynolds as well. And what we're most likely going to see is Jameson not being too impactful in your regular 10-team, start 2 wide receiver, 1 flex redraft league. Now, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr. are both going to be missing week 4, which is very interesting, right? Because now all of a sudden you say, okay, well, Zay Flowers, who ran 100% of the routes for this team last week, is that much more appealing. But with that being said, this is a brutal matchup going up against the Cleveland Browns, where the Browns have allowed the fewest points this season to running backs, to receivers, and to tight ends. So far, of course, this doesn't mean that this is going to be the case for the rest of the year, but so far, the Cleveland Browns have had the best defense against fantasy football options in the NFL. So it is a little bit nerve-wracking to go through and start any of these Baltimore Ravens, but I think that we probably need to go ahead and we probably need to say, oh, okay, well, at the end of the day, if Zay Flowers is going to see this kind of target volume, we probably have to be going through and starting him. Now, Gus Edwards, not on the injury report. We talked about Justice Hill at the very top. There are going to be too many Baltimore Ravens running backs active to even consider playing any. Devonta Smith is not on the injury report this week. I mean, this is something that popped up on Thursday where he didn't practice, blah, blah, blah. I know some people are concerned. He's good to go. I mean, don't hesitate. And then Austin Eckler will be doubtful. So you know what this means? Fire up Joshua Kelly. Josh, I'm joking. We're not going to tell you to do it again. You know, over the past 2 weeks, I have been burned over Joshua Kelly, thinking that, oh, okay, Kelly's going to be a running back in an elite offense, seeing every single snap, seeing every single touch. I mean, he has to produce, right? Well, we have learned the hard way. I have learned, so you don't have to, that Joshua Kelly is someone that you cannot trust in fantasy football, and you are not going to be playing him this week. So please do not start Joshua Kelly. Leave him on the waiver wire. Let your opponent go out there, pick him up, and then you know what's going to happen. He's going to drop 30 points on your head when we decided finally not to start him this week. Now, we had this report, obviously doesn't have an impact on Sunday, but has an impact long-term. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson were both on a snap count in week 4. They will be much better going forward. Now, Brandon Ayuk is going to be playing week 4, ladies and gentlemen. No hesitation. Go through, play Brandon Ayuk. I think he probably could have played last week, but ultimately they played on Thursday. So getting an extra day of rest just makes a lot of sense. And also we know Deebo Samuel is banged up. Now, Hollywood Brown's still listed as questionable. Apparently he had a thumb injury. Some crap happened in practice. I don't know. He's going up against the 49ers. You don't play Hollywood Brown against the 49ers anyway. And then DK Metcalf fully practices. DK Metcalf will be good to go. No hesitation. And then Derek Carr, likely a game time decision. I think we already talked about this. But overall, I'm not really going to be changing too much, whether it's Carr or Winston. I mean, selfishly, I like Winston, so I kind of want to see him play. And this is what also pains me, because I have a ton of Saquon Barkley, ladies and gentlemen. Saquon Barkley got in a limited practice on Thursday. Saquon Barkley got in a limited practice on, I believe, Wednesday and Friday. He got in practices 3 days straight, plays on Monday night. Saquon Barkley is listed as doubtful for week 4. because he's a Monday night player, we're not going to be able to rely upon him. If you have another option, you probably have to go through and you probably have to start that other player. But it is what it is. Hopefully we get Saquon Barkley back in week 5. I'm going to operate under the assumption that we do because he was practicing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then I think that should be it for the injury updates. So let me remind you, if you have not done so already, go down there, hit that like button. Looks like less than 10% of y'all have hit that like. Subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. I'll be live streaming later today, answering all your fantasy football questions. I'll be live streaming tomorrow morning. I'll be live streaming every single day until 2024. And of course, if you want to check out any of these pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, one of my favorite pick'ems that I can point out to you right now is going to be the Alexander Madison for fewer than 75.5 total yards with Cam Akers good to go this week. You can find that link in the live chat in the description in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. Plus, you'll be getting a Patrick Mahomes special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard going up against the New York Jets on Sunday night. But thank you again. I really do appreciate y'all. Really hope you have a great day and really hope we get to see you out with the live stream later tonight. Actually, one other thing. If you have a question, drop it in the comments. I'll stick around and try to answer as many questions in the comment section as I possibly can.